So it's been about 9 years since I made one of these videos. I stopped making them just because of the amount of time and effort they take to make. I've got a full-time job and a family, I don't work in the industry anymore, and plus I don't actually know how many people take the time to watch these. Whether or not I take the time to make a post or a video, I do still make a list every year. I watch about 120 plus new movies every year, and I find that these lists are just a great way to put a full year into perspective. Not only to explore what worked and what didn't, but also to give these films kind of a second life in my mind when I look back at these lists years from now. It's not just about what films were good in 2025, but it's about what specifically in them worked for me in this stage in my life. I also just happen to be very passionate about some of the films on the list this year, and I think I would regret it years from now if I didn't take the time to put those thoughts into words and then make those words public while I still have the chance and they're still relevant. As of making this video, I've seen 131 movies released in 2025. In general, I don't really believe in good and bad years for movies, and that I feel like the years that I think are better are just the years that I've seen more, but I do think that the good movies this year were more evenly distributed than in years past. By the end of July, I already had a list of 10 strong movies that I would have been comfortable having be my top 10 of the year, when normally most are backloaded in November and December. And with that, I found it really difficult to narrow my list down to only 10. So the way that I structure this is anytime that I see a movie, I put it into a category: bad, fine, good, or great. Of those that I give a great rating, I then rank them and then take my top 10 for this. So here are some that I really loved last year that didn't quite crack my top 10. F1, Roofman, Freaky Tales, Rental Family, and I was actually one of the few people that really liked A Big, Bold, Beautiful Journey. James Gunn gave us, in my opinion, the first good Superman movie by nailing the tone and letting the well-written, developed relationship between Clark and Lois be the heart of the story. Black Bag was a really tight screenplay that packs a ton of story into a very short mystery thriller. American Sweatshop gave a thrilling depiction of the negative consequences of the anonymity people feel in the hellscape that is the internet. The Long Walk did a marvelous job building a world through dialogue in an environment that is both constantly changing but also the exact same. Sinners used vampirism in an incredibly clever allegorical way while having great music and immersive setting, and also containing two of my favorite scenes of the whole year. Friendship took a very relatable concept of adult men having a hard time making and maintaining new friends, and then did its very best to not make it relatable at all by making the main character a complete weirdo with no social awareness. One of the funniest movies I saw all year. Companion took a very simple concept that was executed to perfection by playing on cliches of rom-com meet-cute openings as well as sci-fi and horror norms. And for an honorary number 11, I also wanted to talk about a small grouping. So for the last 4 or 5 years, I've been a voter for the Film Independent Spirit Awards, which is something that I've grown to really look forward to every year. They are mostly movies that I would not have watched otherwise, and in some cases I never even would have heard about them had I not been required to watch them as a voter. This year had so many wonderful titles, with some little impactful dramas such as Outer Lands, A Little Prayer, Rebuilding, and Familiar Touch. But there are actually 4 that I'd really like to call out that easily could be in my top 10 depending on how I'm feeling on any given day. Twinless is a very fun sort of drama thriller that starts with a support group for people whose twins have recently died and then takes some very fun and wild unexpected turns from there. The Plague, which had a staggeringly realistic portrayal of preteen bullying. Then Ephus is a hilarious portrayal of people who just love baseball to the point of it being a part of their DNA, even when they don't actually enjoy it anymore. And lastly, for what was almost my number 10, The Baltimoreans was a very funny and surprisingly charming little slice of life Christmas Eve story that worked on every level for me. Alright, and then with no further ado, here are my top 10 favorite movies of 2025. In my opinion, the foundation to a great action movie is a simple premise with a main character who is uniquely qualified to handle a situation that they don't want to be in. No movie in 2025 used that formula to its advantage better than Novocaine. The premise is very simple. An assistant manager at a bank has a disorder who makes it so he can't feel pain, tries to rescue a woman who he has feelings for after she's taken hostage. It starts by showing what a burden this condition has been for him his whole life, and how he has to take extreme precautions doing just everyday simple tasks such as eating. And that serves as the perfect contrast to how he has to act once he's thrown into this intense situation, basically allowing himself to be mutilated in order to get one step closer to saving her. And while that juxtaposition works great on a character level, it also allows the action sequences to just be more fun. He's not a trained fighter, he has no special skills or training, his condition just renders other people's skills less valuable. It allows him to be the everyman while also allowing him to win fights that a normal bank assistant manager never would be able to. All that is great, but none of it would matter if the action wasn't good. But the action set pieces were excellent as well. They used the plot to their advantage in new and clever ways, they were legitimately funny, managed to keep raising the stakes as the story went on, and kept finding new ways to make me cringe.
Oh, wow, that hurt! That one hurt the most!
Some movies are just pure cinematic perfection, and others just feel like they were made specifically for me. I don't know who wrote Borderline, but I feel like they had me in mind during the entire writing process of this perfectly weird comedic thriller.
I miss you a lot.
It's a sort of home invasion stalker thriller, but it doesn't take itself seriously at all, and it leans much heavier on the comedy side than it does the horror. And it loses all sense of reality shortly after the midpoint, when it becomes just this romp where the horror elements aren't even the slightest bit scary because of the wild and wonderful tone that it moved into. I'm a huge Samara Weaving fan, and she is just wonderful in this. My favorite scene in the movie is this very weird sequence where one of the intruders starts playing It's All Coming Back to Me from Celine Dion on her piano, and Samara's facial expressions are just so hilarious and perfect for the situation.
There were nights when the wind was so cold.
Her comedic timing is just on another level, and I wish she got the recognition that she deserves for it. This movie certainly isn't going to be for everyone, but it could not have been more for me.
Shouldn't you be up there?
I don't know.
Now, there might be a little bit of recency bias for this one, since I did actually just watch this movie last night, but I just cannot stop thinking about how wonderful Splitsville is. The tagline is an unromantic comedy, which is perfect because it goes so far out of its way to do exactly what you would not expect from a romantic comedy, and makes it work so well because these wonderful weirdos are just so well defined. It's easy to root for them in certain situations, but then when things fall apart in spectacularly comedic fashion, it's also easy to cheer that on.
This is normal, right? People go through stuff like this in the first year of marriage.
No.
At the surface, the movie's viewpoints on relationships seem cynical, but I actually think it's just trying to not take a position at all. It feels like it's using relationships more of a setting to explore how these specific characters view themselves through their wants and insecurities, rather than treating a relationship as a prize or a goal. And I think that subverting of expectations is what makes every ridiculous twist and turn feel so much more funny and impactful. It had a feeling of chaos throughout, which is just the perfect tone for an unromantic comedy.
What are you guys doing?
Greetings. Welcome to the headquarters of Human Resistance.
The first 3/4 of Begonia were a tense, thrilling, and intimate kidnapping thriller, and if that's how the movie stayed, it still probably would have been good enough to be in a top 10 movie for me. However, it does get better. Jesse Plemons, Emma Stone, and newcomer Aidan Delbus form this perfect cat and mouse triangle, each bringing a unique dynamic to these hostage negotiations. The dialogue stood out in a really special way. Emma Stone perfectly displays the charm and wit that you would expect from a corporate executive who is in a tense situation, while using negotiating tactics to try and gain the mental upper hand when she was in a position with no power. Then Jesse Plemons' character spoke in a way that felt very genuine as a sold-out conspiracy theorist who is so devout in his beliefs that no amount of evidence or convincing could shake his convictions.
Where's my hair?
Your hair has been destroyed to prevent you from contacting your ship.
And while Aidan's character was the perfect foil as somebody who could be manipulated, the way that the three played off each other was pure poetry. It's difficult to talk about the movie without talking about the ending, which I don't really want to do for spoiler purposes, but what I will say is that I found it very interesting how the ending seemed like it set up two very distinct themes that you could draw from it, but they don't really work together. You have to choose a lens in which to view the movie from. I could easily see this as an environmental message, showing how humans have proved themselves to be unfit to care for our planet, but I could also see an interpretation exploring the ways that conspiracy theories and cults take on a new life of their own even after the creator is out of the equation. Both work beautifully within the context of the movie, but they don't work at the same time. And I think that is so clever and what makes Begonia so much fun to discuss.
I hear where you're coming from. I do. And I respectfully disagree.
On which part?
Primarily, I'm not an alien.
I love romantic comedies, and I love slasher movies. Both genres are generally known to be predictable in nature, but have a certain charm to that predictability. I don't think anybody knows or understands that connection better than the writers of Hard Eyes. It combines the plots of a rom-com and a cheesy slasher movie into one story, using the tropes of both in a very silly and extremely fun parody of both genres. There are times when it seems like only a slasher movie, and then there are times where it seems like only a rom-com. But the movie really shines when it does both at the same time. There's a moment near the end that I think just perfectly encapsulates everything that this movie is, where two characters are sharing a heartfelt moment while pulling a tire iron out of the eye socket of one of the Hard-Eyed Killer's last victims. It was just cinematic perfection. The tone of something like this is so difficult to navigate, and they just did it beautifully, all culminating in this wild and over-the-top ending. It felt like the filmmakers were having so much fun, really leaning into the comedy portion of the horror romantic comedy genre, which is, I guess, now a thing, and I could not be any happier about that.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Happy V-Day!
Get killed, all right?
What was...
Why would he say that?
A good setting for a movie should give the viewer insight as to the general tone that the movie is going for, as well as provide some sort of foreshadowing through to the theme or possible future plot developments. And then a great setting should also become a character in and of itself to give the actual characters something to play off of to grow and develop.
Is there not like a harbour? It's sort of nature's harbour. Welcome to Wallace Island. No!
The Ballad of Wallace Island takes place on a very small, remote island, which amplifies the sense of loneliness and isolation that past his prime musician Herb McGuire was fighting throughout the runtime. There was almost a sense of claustrophobia, even though that the setting was vast and nearly empty. It just also felt very unescapable for the unique situation that Herb was put in.
Where will the audience be? You said there'd be 100. I said less than 100. Is it just you? Yeah. Right.
The idea of a rich superfan booking a musician that most people have forgotten about to play a private gig that he doesn't know is a private gig only works if that superfan character exerts quirkiness over creepiness. And Tim Key played that role to perfection. You never really question his motivations, at least not in a sinister sense, because he was just such a funny, lovable oaf, even if he was a bit socially challenged.
Wowzers in your trousers. Yeah, the waves. No, shh. Like, shut up, don't say mate. Yeah.
To me, the movie was about learning how to move on while still appreciating your past, and it did it in a way that was very funny while never sacrificing the dramatic elements. And the music was also excellent. The songs written for the movie blended the themes and the tone in a way where they felt like they existed outside of the scope of the story, even though they hit every emotional beat.
If you need some affection and your feet.
I also want to mention how I more or less guessed how the movie was going to end from about the halfway point, but the ending had so much more weight to it after going through the third act. So even though it may not have felt surprising, it still felt earned and necessary to end the film the way that it does. For me, it was the perfect blend of drama, comedy, and music in an unforgettable setting. There is some disagreement in the screenwriting community as to whether the writer should directly state its theme at some point in the script. I've seen some writers say that it's tacky and doesn't take the audience seriously, while others use it as a way to foreshadow certain story elements and get the audience on their same wavelength. Whether or not it works certainly depends on the writing and the story that it is trying to tell, but within the context of the movie, no stated theme this year worked better for me than I Contain Multitudes. It's always fascinating to me to see the techniques that writers use to engage the audience in the first act. The Life of Chuck's tactic was to make it as confusing as possible, which made the ending payoff so special and memorable. The story is told backwards in 3 parts, and the reasons why becomes clear once you realize the kind of story that it is trying to tell. The movie is about the value that one ordinary life holds, far beyond what they do. And it projects that not only through the life of Chuck, but also through small, seemingly meaningless interactions that stayed with him through to the end of his life. They were part of what made him the person that he was, even if he didn't realize it. A person is the accumulation of every interaction that they've made throughout their life, but also much more than just the sum of their parts. I Contain Multitudes. There were multiple extended dance sequences throughout, 2 in particular that were 5+ minutes long each, that feel like they should have gotten stale, but they never did. I think part of the credit needs to go to the perfectly cast group of actors whose charm and charisma were undeniable, but mostly I think the film laid the groundwork for the themes so well that we subconsciously knew that these meant a whole lot more than just a person dancing in the street or dancing in a high school gym, but it's a representation of, quote, why God made the world. Movies that are just about life in general can often feel overreaching and preachy, but I never felt that way about The Life of Chuck, and I think it was because of how it went about telling this story. It encompassed a lifetime, but it only highlighted a select few moments, and the moments are not the ones that you would normally expect in a story like this, which is such a cool way to show the impact of the simplicity of life.
No more today. No more today. We gotta quit while we're ahead.
What do you get when you combine The Fugitive, How to Blow Up a Pipeline, and Dog Day Afternoon?
Viva la revolution!
As the title suggests, one battle after another is non-stop, high-energy, thrilling cinematic perfection. The scale is epic, the casting is flawless, the tension never lets up, and somehow manages to be sneaky, funny, and heartfelt. Making a politically charged thriller in this climate seems like a recipe for disaster, but one battle never feels like it comes from a place of moral superiority. The revolutionist regime is filled with flawed individuals doing some very morally questionable things, and their flaws are what make them so much fun to watch. It isn't necessarily a tale of good versus evil as much as it is human versus establishment. And even though there is very clear evil within that establishment, the movie feels much more focused on the individual characters' journeys than it does trying to preach to the audience about some ideal societal structure. And I just love what they do with Leo's character in the second act of this movie.
You know, I don't
I don't remember that part. All right, let's just not nitpick over the passwords.
He's this gloriously out of his depth has-been who bumbles around trying to recapture some sort of competency that he had earlier in his young days, with his own and his daughter's life on the line, which raised the stakes in a very natural and hilarious way, while making him feel more grounded and realistic. It's the rare example of a movie that felt both short and long at the same time. It felt so immersive and epic that it felt like I just witnessed a lifetime in the theater, but at the same time, it also felt like it flew by and I would be very happy for it to just keep going, which is one of the best compliments that you can pay to a movie.
Courage. Yeah. Thank you. Hey, thank you, Sensei. Thank you, Sensei. Thank you.
I normally feel like horror movie trailers are significantly more chilling than the actual movies, and that's because that scary feeling generally comes from a sense of mystery of not understanding the world that the movie creates. The more logic of the world is revealed, the less mystery there is, the less scary it feels. In my opinion, the most effective horror movies keep that mystery alive for the first 2 acts, leave solid foreshadowing throughout without tipping their hand too much, and then have a big final act that overcomes the diminished sense of mystery with either increased stakes or a tonal shift to make the final act feel distinct from the first 2. So let's talk about weapons.
I see something that doesn't make any sense at all. Talking about 17 kids in one classroom. What happened in that classroom? Why just her classroom? Why only hers?
Weapons told the story non-linearly through the different viewpoints of each of the central characters, which was useful for giving the audience only the information that they needed at a given time. It also showed how and why nobody was able to figure out what was happening, and it was just because no one person had all the information that they would need. That kept the mystery alive for a majority of the run length. I remember about at the halfway point me thinking, what the hell is happening? Which is impressive for a horror movie to keep me guessing for that long. Even beyond the main plot, the storytelling method did a great job timing its reveals for the character beats. Some things that seemed small and insignificant from Justine's point of view took on a whole new meaning when we saw Paul's side of the story. They also pulled off having 2 very flawed characters who were adversaries at the beginning of the story come together in a way that didn't feel forced at all. It just felt like the logical next step, which is very difficult to pull off, particularly because of how hostile the relationship was at the beginning of their story. Circling back to my earlier comments, it managed to both raise the stakes at the end while also seamlessly changing tones. I was actually audibly laughing out loud at one point during the climax while something truly horrifying and gruesome was happening. It made the ending feel different enough from the rest of the movie that it didn't feel like a letdown, even though the suspense of not knowing what was happening is over. My biggest complaint would be how simple the reveal actually was. You could literally sum it up in one word, but I think that makes it all the more impressive how they were able to keep it a mystery for so much of the runtime. I felt like I was feeling exactly the way the movie wanted me to feel at any given point during the story, which is actually very rare for a movie like this.
It's a peculiarity of mine. I don't even try to rationalize it anymore.
So throughout the year, when I see a movie that I just really respond to, I generally just jot down a quick paragraph, 4 to 8 sentences, of just what worked for me, so at the end of the year, when determining my favorites, I can look back and remember what I was feeling at those exact moments right after seeing it. After I saw my number 1 favorite movie of the year, I wrote down 12 pages. So needless to say, to keep this video under an hour long, I'm going to give you the Cliff Notes version. I might upload a different video down the line that is more complete specifically about this movie, if that is something that those of you who are still watching would be interested in. But yeah, here are my very trimmed down notes of the best movie that I saw in 2025. So in 2013, when I got out of Frozen, I was amazed at how they were able to address important themes in such a creative and unique way. The storytelling, the visuals, the music, the vivid characters, all felt organic and worked together to drive home these important themes. I came out of Frozen wondering if I would ever feel that way about an animated movie again. And it's taken 12 years, but I finally have.
We are hunters, voices strong, slaying demons with our song.
K-pop Demon Hunters exemplifies everything that I love about movies. It's extremely entertaining, but has so many layers to it beyond its great story, animation, music, characters, dialogue, design, etc. For instance, when I first started watching it, I wondered why they chose to make them demons rather than like goblins or some nondescript monster. But as the movie was going on, it became very clear that while they were literal demons that they were fighting, they were also representative of Rumi's inner demons that she had to face. I wondered why they called them patterns rather than like markings or scars, and it's because they represent addictions, impulses, or toxic personality patterns. The symbolism was so well integrated into the story in a way that was both very obvious but also never distracting. Since the rise of idiots blogging on the internet in the mid-2010s, it seems like major studios, particularly prominent in animation, have felt reluctant to give female protagonists any sort of a character flaw. Looking at examples like Moana, her biggest flaw is just being naive, I guess. Maribel's flaw is that she didn't get along with her family, and I guess you could argue general insecurity, but that was very loosely tied to the plot of the movie. And what about Raya? Her big flaw was that she just didn't trust somebody that she had no business trusting in the first place. Don't get me started. And then there's also this tendency to make these characters just way overpowered, which makes all of their accomplishments feel shallow at the end. To try to cater to the strong independent woman archetype, these characters have lost any sense of growth, and what they accomplish normally has very little to do with overcoming any sort of personal struggle, which makes these accomplishments just feel hollow. Everything about K-pop Demon Hunters worked for me, but the most impressive thing was how Rumi's clear struggles and flaws were at the core of every emotional beat and plot development. This is not just a movie about a pop star that also fights demons. It's a story about shame, addiction, depression, insecurity, guilt, and the constructs in place that keep people feeling like they are alone in dealing with them, which ends up being what perpetuates the problem. Rumi has major flaws, and they aren't only hurting herself, they are hurting her friends and the Hunmoon, and thus the entire world. It mostly revolves around the shame that she feels from where she came from, who her dad was, her feelings of being an unwanted mistake, but she is also a workaholic who doesn't know how to relax. She can be inconsiderate towards her friends, and she has clear trust issues.
Now it's the new single.
The promo starts tomorrow.
Tonight?
No, wait, but the pajamas. No.
But she isn't helpless. She's also incredibly powerful, beautiful, and talented. And she's also allowed to be weird and awkward.
Excuse me? I'm everyone's type.
You can't even show up on
What
time.
are you, from the 1900s?
I can see why you're still single.
What?
See?
And while this is her story, she's not the only one with an important arc central to the themes. Mira and Zoe had their own inner demons to fight, with very clear weaknesses as well.
Overly blunt, short-fused, highly aggressive.
You're too much and not enough.
And while their faults are not as directly tied to the plot as Rumi's are, Rumi's arc wouldn't have any sort of weight to it without Mira and Zoe. And the finale wouldn't be as impactful if not for establishing where Zoe and Mira still have room for growth, not to mention the journey that Ginu goes through. So much care was put into making everyone feel real, serve the narrative arc, and explore these dense themes. Oh yeah, and this is also a musical. The songs are all able to make sense outside of the context of the movie, within the context of the movie, have the lyrics work both literally and metaphorically, and in some cases work multiple different ways depending on the viewpoint you choose to see them from, and also be great songs. There are important beats that happen between the songs as well, but each song feels like a perfect climax representing the information that the audience needs to extract from that point of the story. There are a lot of individual thoughts and feelings I have about each song, but I don't really have time to go into that in this video, so here's just one quick note on each of them. How It's Done is the perfect setup song defining Huntrix's relationship and their identity as both pop stars and demon hunters. It shows their confidence, their abilities, their strength, while also never losing their femininity. Golden brilliantly uses many intricate lyrical techniques to define Rumi's inner struggles, having the same lyrics take on a completely different meaning the second time through the chorus after Rumi's reveal. Soda Pop works as a catchy pop tune, as a metaphor for addiction and destructive tendencies, and it works in two different ways depending on how you look at it. Takedown is a beautiful representation of how hateful words towards other people often are a reflection of the worst that we see in ourselves.
We see what you are. A mistake.
Free's lyrics walk a very thin tightrope, sidestepping the idea that a romantic relationship fixes your problems, instead showing vulnerability, giving a broken person hope.
I don't hear his voice.
Your idol represents the initial comfort that people find in addiction, not realizing the destructive path that it leads you to. And finally, What It Sounds Like ties everything together. It was the perfect culmination of the plot, characters, music, and themes, all wrapped up into one incredible musical package, delivered in a way so that anyone can understand, hear, sing, and feel the message of hope and community.
I've been the fire and I'll be right here.
I know I need to wrap this up, but I wanted to point out my favorite little moment of the movie. During the Idol Awards, when Rumi is on stage performing, while Zoe and Mira are getting their hair, makeup, and costumes touched up, Zoe exclaims, both of them just looked so proud and happy for Rumi, with whom they'd been feeling some tension with in recent memory. It didn't feel like a moment of them being excited for winning or even saving the world. It felt like two people who were just proud of their friend. And that just speaks to what worked so well about this movie. It had humanity. It gave the characters room to just love and be proud of each other. For a movie that's all about not facing your inner demons on your own, letting these characters have these little human moments isn't just important. It's the only way to make it feel like these themes are real. To all of the other animation studios out there, take note. This is how it's... Thank you to everyone for watching. Like I said, these videos do take a lot of time and effort, so if you did enjoy watching it, please let me know. I would really appreciate it. And if you would be interested in me making a full video breaking down my full thoughts on K-pop Demon Hunters, let me know that as well, because I'm not going to waste my time doing it if nobody wants to see it, but I do really genuinely love that movie and would love to talk about it some more. And please let me know your favorites of the year. I never don't want to talk about movies, and I'm always curious to hear what works for other people. Thanks, and maybe I'll see you again in 2026.